Welcome back. It's to another series, welcome back everyone to Read to Me TT bedtime series. I hope you all are ready for another fun bedtime story. You have to introduce yourself now.
My name is Uncle Jules, and I create magical experiences.
And my name is Auntie Candace, and I take people on lovely experiences, tours, and trips across the world. But now that we have Corona, I'm taking them on lovely trips right here in Trinidad and Tobago. So I hope you and your parents are going to join us on a wonderful tour one day. Okay, kids, so we all know these past few months have had us inside, but just remember that we are all being heroes in our own way by staying inside and flattening the curve. So tonight we have a great story called A Calypso
Story!
Brought to you by Uncle Jules and Auntie Candace.
This book was written by Timothy Christopher Timal. And remember, so let's get started.
Okay, guys. So, A Calypso Story.
Fight! The boys from both schools surrounded their respective representatives as Machel and Kurt had each other in headlocks just off the Roxy roundabout under the watchful eye of a statue which guarded the King George V Park on the western main road side. This fight had been brewing for years, but came to the fore as all the schools from all over the country had earlier that day gathered at the National Stadium. But as Machel and Kurt rolled towards the base of the statue, something happened. The world froze around them, and a hole opened up in the ground.
That sounds a little bit scary. Both boys looked at each other. Dreadful fright plastered on their faces as they fell and fell further into the abyss. But as they fell, rather than their speed increasing, it slowed until it seemed like both boys were floating in the air. You see this as well? Machel had beat Kurt to the question, who just nodded his head as they floated in their descent. Just as Kurt was about to ask his question, a big bright light shot up from behind them, beneath them. Panic on their faces again, the two held each other tight as the small ring of the light expanded until they both could clearly see the wide rim of an exit to their tunnel.
With a soft thud, they landed on the pillowy green grass carpeted floor, looking around in stunned amazement. At their very colorful world, Kurt beat Machel to the punch this time. Where are we? Machel was too awestruck to respond and just kept spinning in circles, looking up and down at their surroundings. They were smack dab in the middle of a clearing of what looked like a magical, brightly colored forest. There were trees in a circle and brilliant colors everywhere. Before the boys could come to terms with their reality, they heard it.
It started off as a purr, but the closer it got, the more ominous it sounded. To their left, they could see the shaking of the branches and the falling of leaves as whatever was making the sound drew nearer. Eyes saucered, and both Kurt and Machel held each other tightly when it broke through. A growling tiger led the procession of mourners all lined up for the funeral. The boys could see just behind the growling tiger was a roaring lion, and their fear increased. That was until they heard her voice.
She got into a 5-car accident early one morning, and after battling for over a week, she succumbed to her injuries. Both boys gasped loud at the tragic tale emanating from the angelic face of the 10-year-old girl who had somehow snuck up on them. But when little Onika smiled, their trepidation fell away. That is until the blood-curdling growl of the tiger
Roar!
shook them back to their reality. Turning ever so slightly, both boys sucked in their breaths when they found the tiger a whisker away. They were both about to scream when Onika pushed forward and petted the tiger on its large head before it quickly got back to its duties which saw it there that day.
With unbelievable shock on their faces, Machel and Kurt each asked questions respectively. Who are you? Where are we? How did you do that? Both boys chimed in the last question, which brought a bright smile to Onika's face just before she put her finger to her lips. Shh. Do you hear it? Onika's question was met with anxiety at first, as the two boys followed her gaze at the proceedings, but when she put her hands to both shoulders to calm them down, something incredible started happening.
It's an old Calypso. Oops. No, you're possibly.
No.
Happening is here.
Yeah.
The loud, discordant growl started to slowly morph into a more ear-pleasing tone until finally, to the boys' delight, they were now listening to a most melodious tune. When I dead, bury me clothes. When I dead, bury me clothes. It's an old Calypso growling tiger, sings all the time. Seemed the most appropriate song for funerals. Machel and Kurt looked at her once more, the wonderment on their faces having returned. Growing tiger knows me and is just a big pussycat. You are in Calypsoland, and my name is Onika. Onika lit up as she gave them the answers they were seeking, but there was one other question that was not asked.
Past, present, and future is all the same, but what matters most is how you play the game.
The game.
Growling Tiger's words were sure and steady and hinted at so much more. You want to know how to get back to the other world, don't you? Both Machel and Kurt nodded, causing Onika to smile. Then, are you prepared to play the game?
Yes, we are.
Machel ended Kurt's beginning. Good. Then you need to go see a duke and a knight. Take Onika with you. She's on a journey of her own.
Wasting no time, the trio set out on their journey. But as they did, Machel could not help but notice the smirk on Kurt's face. Netty, netty! Netty, netty! Now that is how it's done, Machel. The song Kurt was singing was one he picked up from the Roaring Lion as the funeral proceedings made their way back from whence they came, just as Machel, Kurt, and Onika had set about on their own journey. Machel shook his head in anger. Hey ha! And Onika could feel the tension between the boys, as music had always divided them. Kurt preferring the more traditional stuff, and Machel way more interested in the modern. This would soon have to take a back seat, as up ahead, on the forest road that they were traveling on, came the sound of hooves galloping underground.
Finally stopped Machel and Kurt, came face to face with the two royally adorned steeds, their manes silken and luminescent. As the knight and duke slid off their rides, Machel backed up a bit, but true to his future sobriquet, Kurt stood his ground as the last Bajan ready to fight. A thunderous, "Look, Sir Lancelot, how cute! One of them wants to fight." A thunderous laugh resonated from within the knight's shiny armor, but in a flash he drew his sword to a hair's breadth from Kurt. Onika immediately intervened. "We mean you no harm, O great Duke. We're on a journey and would actually appreciate your help. These two need to get back to the other world." With a wave of his hand, Duke commanded Sir Lancelot to stand down.
"You wonder, I wonder, what do I have inside my staff that would break any asunder?" The heavy shine of his flowing purple and royal blue robes immediately lost its glow as dark clouds gathered overhead and shards of light began to jump from cloud to cloud. The sky was angry, and its low grumble signaled this, and as the Duke lifted his beautifully adorned staff into the air, all knew that something big was about to happen.
Unless...
"Is thunder! Is thunder! If I only hold you tonight!"
Is thunder!
One of the songs you won the monarch with is thunder. That's the answer to your question. Machel was hesitant at first, hey ha, but grew in confidence as he revealed his knowledge of Calypso history. This greatly shocked Kurt, who wore an expression to match, but it also pleased the Duke, who lowered his staff in his hand, which saw an immediate clearing of the sky.
"Very good, young'un." The Duke and Sir Lancelot then remounted their horses to be on their way, but not before telling the trio of the next stop on their journey, which was to see a shadow by a big cave further west. Still in deep thought about Machel's old Calypso knowledge, Kurt did not realize how far ahead he had gotten from Machel and Onika. Because of this, he was the first to be affected. Looking up ahead at Kurt, curious looks formed on Machel and Onika's face as they saw what he was now doing, but in quick time, they were also affected. And just as Kurt was doing, they both began to bounce up and down with their hands outstretched by their sides in the easily recognizable dance.
Pom pom, pititi pom pom, pom pom, pititi pom pom, pom pom, pititi pom pom, pom 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 pom. The song that was causing their strange dance only grew louder and louder in their heads as they got closer to their destination. There at the cave, the shadow explained that he was the base man in their heads, and that they were to go through the cave to reach the other side, where not too far after the field of plenty, they would meet a short Rasta man.
Rasta.
At the bridge between. The shadow did not tell the boys between what, but as the trio burst out onto the other side of the cave, Kurt figured it out. Past, present, and future is all the same. We are in Calypsoland. Past, and the bridge is to the present. Onika smiled her approval, but then a quizzical look overtook Kurt's face. If here is the past, how is the shadow here?
Obia, you're walking. Obia
man.
Ask the question. Machel began to bounce up and down once more like the legendary bard, mimicking another of the Shadow's classic songs. Machel's silliness brought big guffaws from both Kurt and Onika. But when Kurt hooked his arm around Machel's shoulder and joined in the theatrics, pride filled Onika's face. Sworn enemies back in the other world, the two boys were bonding in ways they could not have imagined. And when their fun had subsided, an even bigger treat awaited them. One that also demonstrated their commonality. Mere minutes away from the bridge of past to present, the boys and Onika now found themselves in a field of fruit trees most their age may never experience.
As if lined up in alphabetical order, the boys had their fill of sweet, tangy, and sour juices and fruit flesh, all combining to cause an explosion on the taste buds that will forever be remembered. From avocado, balata, and kashima, to kaimet, cashew, and chenet. Then on to cocorite, dongs, fat pork, and 5 fingers, the boys gorged. But there was more. Gris-gris, grumichama, jamun, and mami sapote, monkey apple, podu, penny piece, pomarac, pomsite, sapodilla, cerise, and soursop. Sugar apple, tonka bean, West Indian cherry, and finally, zabakuo, or paradise nut, plenty fruits. A fitting name for the end of their treats, since this place of abundance was indeed paradise. But with stomachs filled, the boys looked at each other in realization. Onika had not eaten one bite. Onika lit up with a broad smile as she reads the question on their faces. All is yours.
All is yours.
Boys.
All is yours. Not only had she sung her words, but she had begun to chip and prance as if in a carnival band. Both boys looked at each other, then back at Onika, moving further down the path, and both broke out in regales of laughter before getting up to follow her. They would eventually learn that Onika's generosity had a secret reasoning. But for now, they were content to follow their guide who had led them thus far. Walking side by side now, the trio saw the short Rasta man sitting on a small rock at the side of the road. But as they approached him, the ground beneath their feet began to shake, and a terrible tearing sound was heard as just beyond the short Rasta man, a gulf formed between them and the other side. It seemed for there to be a bridge keeper, there needed to be a separation of land masses.
Standing at the edge now, both Kurt and Machel, could see just how bottomless the chasm that formed between past and present was. And were it not for the line of fire, somewhere in the distance, they would have sworn it went straight to the center of the earth. La 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 la. Rash Shorty Eye, as he called himself, had gotten their full attention with his sweet melodic voice, and as they stood before him in a trance, he whispered soul-searching words. My son and my father walked through the pass before they came. To cross the bridge to the present, you must utter my name.
Om Shanti Om.
Machel and Kurt both said the sacred words with the reverence they deserved, and the bridge keeper responded in kind.
Shanti Shanti Om. Each time he repeated the words, he grew a bit until, in a repeated frenzy, he grew to enormous proportions. So big was this towering giant of a man that he could easily step over to the other side. And this is just what he did as he scooped Kurt, Machel, and Onika gently into his hands. With a soft thud, he let them loose onto a tuft of grass, and as quickly as he had blown up, he clasped his hands in prayer and shrunk back to size after crossing back over to take his place on the rock. On their way once more along the path, the mood was more somber as both boys paid justice to the reverence of the crossing. But strong emotions would soon come to the fore once more, as directly on the path before them was a sheer mountain face that seemed to stretch to the sky for miles and miles.
With little hesitation, Onika began to climb, and after shooting each other quizzical looks, Machel and Kurt began to follow. The journey up would be tough, as many loose rocks and slippery footings gave way, but through it all, Machel and Kurt were determined to make it to the top, each passing the time by singing and preparing. Just mere feet from the pinnacle, both boys lit up at their impending victory over the mountain. But after surviving all that it had thrown at them thus far, the mountain conspired to give them one last test. Machel, hey ha, who was ahead of Kurt, could smell the intoxicating air at the top and turned to look back at his friend to share the good news. But just as he did, Kurt had a slip, and without thinking, Machel stretched out his hand to catch his friend and stop him from falling. Onika was ecstatic at the gesture, and she too pitched in to save both boys, who, unable to let go of each other, surely would not survive to make it to the top.
A mighty bond formed, so the rest of the journey was a breeze, as nothing could stop the lads in reaching their goals. Not even the drama of hearing a gypsy cry out to his captain, "The ship is sinking!" in madness at losing its rudder after it was attacked by a pint-sized but fierce fish called a crow, whilst they were crossing the Erie River, could not stop them. In fact, quite to contrary, the boys noted the comedy of such. Also of note was the fact that after the gypsy and crow were left in the water as the captain sought higher ground and the rudder flew away, was that both got along quite well, as they understood the piquant that life's battles often are. Soon after that, they were to meet a beautiful black rose who, walking hand in hand with a sparrow, told them they were on a different journey back from whence they came, but that before they joined others in the past, they were going down San Fernando, because down they have plenty tempo. The comment by the black rose elicited a most infectious laugh from the sparrow.
Still bitten by the sparrow's mirth and lust for life, Kurt and Machel were still snickering as they entered another clearing. But when they saw the look of sadness on Onika's face, they knew all was not well. Then it happened again. This time, however, it was not a slow build, as it was with the growling tiger, but huge ebbs and flows as the noise crescendoed to deafening proportions, then quickly disappeared to return again moments later. Once again, it took the steadying hand of Onika to help the boys adjust their senses to what was actually occurring. Shh! Do you hear it? As heartbeats steadied and eyes returned from full dilation, both boys heard only what they their kind could receive.
The loud, discordant sound started to slowly morph into a more air-pleasing tone until finally, to the boys' delight, they were now listening to a most melodious tune. Woo-hoo-hoo, 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 woo-hoo-hoo. Right before their eyes, a maestro with his conductor's wand in his hand appeared. Soon after, the source of the sweet melody was revealed as a swarm of killer bees dashed this way and that. Not afraid in the least, the boys stood their ground as the bees zipped and buzzed past them until the individual bees started to take the shape and form of a man in a suit elegantly perched on one leg. Both boys recognized it was the same form of the statue they had seen many times on the cusp of St. James back in their world. Both suspected they were very near to the end of their journey. The melodious song suddenly stopped, leaving a vacuum of silence that was uncomfortable for the boys.
For us, the inhabitants of Calypsoland, one would think that silence would be our greatest enemy. This is not true, as it is only in silence that we can truly hear and we can genuinely listen to what the universe is saying.
Yes.
Machel and Kurt nodded, marveling at the life-altering words of wisdom. Past, present, and future is all the same, but what matters most is how you play the game. Are you prepared to play the game?
Yes, we are.
Images of the journey ticked over in both boys' heads, and when it was finished, a deep calm washed over their very souls, and in unison they began to say the inspired words.
Though not brothers in name, from the past we came, in the present the same. Onward to the future, brothers in arms we will remain. For we are one in the same. Machel and Kurt had come to see the strength in brotherhood and the commonality of their clan. So whether called Soka or Calypso or any other future name, it did not matter, for they were and forever will be from the same stock, cut from the same cloth, sewn together by the tailor of challenges of life on this earth to enhance the beauty of silence. A tear escaped Onika's eye, quickly followed by a burst of laughter as she hugged Machel and Kurt tightly. Her mixed emotions of sadness and bliss, the product of the journey that saw the boys she met at a funeral, turned to the young men that was ready to go back to their world.
As Onika unhinged from the hug, both Machel and Kurt's eyes asked her for a silent question. No, I cannot go with you. I am to stay here until my time comes, which will be not too long again. After that, I am the bridge keeper for the future, welcoming many. The fellas still wore sad faces, so Onika decided to cheer them up. Don't worry about me, young men. A little sparrow told me I have a desperado in my future, and we will jump, get on bad, jump, get on bad, jump, get on bad. One more time, jump, get on bad. The boys lit up at Onika, singing the repeated words in her statement, and the masquerader-like dance which accompanied her efforts. Onika saw that the bees were taking flight and that the maestro had vanished from whence he came, so she gave them one last big hug. And then it happened.
With a big thunderclap, the sky opened up and a ray of bright light shone down to the clearing Machel and Kurt had found themselves at. One last longing look at Onika, and Machel and Kurt began to fall, only this time it was up the beam of light. Much more relaxed now because they were sure of the outcome. Machel and Kurt lay back to enjoy the ride, and as they burst through the top, they could see that the world they had left had not moved 1 millisecond. In a flash, they were sucked back into the shells of their bodies, and like the stuck tape of an old movie reel, life began again with a slight slur at the restart. That stutter was just long enough for both Machel and Kurt to see that the little girl standing just off to the side when they fell into Calypsoland bore the same face and body of their friend Onika from the netherworld. Big hugs flowed for the trio to the stunned crowd's amazement.
Vowing right then and there to never fight again, Machel and Kurt would go on to make peace amongst the two camps. They would also enjoy unprecedented success. Machel's commercial achievements would see him perform to millions of fans throughout the world. Hey ha! Whilst Kurt's accomplishments would be more of the critical kind, where he truly embodied his Calypsonian sobriquet as the last Bajan of Calypso. Tragically, Onika left Machel and Kurt's world when she got into a 5-car accident early one morning. After battling for over a week, she succumbed to her injuries. Safe in their belief that Onika's feet were now firmly planted in Calypsoland, Machel and Kurt held a celebrity concert after her funeral. Artists of the art form from all over the world came to pay tribute, including Lord Nelson, who after joining Machel and Kurt on stage, belted his signature tune about their kindred spirits. All are we as one family. All are we as one family. All are we as one family. The end.
The end. Thanks again for joining us in Read2Me's nightly bedtime series. Hope you had fun reading with us.
But before we go, it is really very important that you listen to us. Are you listening?
Do you want to be little superheroes? Here is what you can do to help. Wash your hands with soap and sing happy birthday twice so you will know you've washed it long enough. Keep your hands out of your mouths and remind mommy, daddy, granny, tanty and nenen, everybody to wear their masks if they are going out. Protect yourselves from the coronavirus that's out there. Say no to germs and we can flatten the curve. We can do this. Why? Because we are in this together. Peace out.